Hello, I'm Simon Chong. I'm one of the founders of Georgian Partners. We led the investment into Bidgely in December 2017. And we focus on companies that leverage AI to automate or improve decision-making in their business processes.
Hi, I'm Emily Walsh. I'm part of the investment team at Georgian Partners. We're a Toronto-based growth equity fund, and we led the investment into Bidgely for their Series C in December of 2017.
First off, if you look at the end market in the energy sector, there's been a huge rise in big data. I mean, that's as a result of the industrial IoT, introduction of smart meters, especially in North America, and a whole variety of new energy technologies, whether it's photovoltaic, electric cars, EV, et cetera, and that's produced a massive opportunity for companies like Bidgely and others, and the enterprises themselves, to deploy advanced analytics and AI technologies for a whole plethora of insights. What we saw in Bidgely was obviously a great management team, and a really great market. But what was the differentiator? And for us, that was the technology. We, as a fund, Georgian Partners, we looked for business software companies like Bidgely that leverage AI to provide and either automate a business process or improve that business process through the automation of decisioning, whether that's direct to the enterprise, whether that's to their end users. And what we saw in Bidgely was providing a really strong ROIs across many different vectors, for their end users, so the end users could really understand how they were consuming energy, whether it was the pool pump or the EV car, and to make better decisions around the plans they have with their retail utility provider. For the utility company, the ability to predict and better manage energy demand, reduce the operating costs within the customer center, call centers, and better segment and target, their end consumer users. And another thing we liked is, there are a finite number of utility companies globally. And we like that, Bidgely was able to do both regulated and deregulated markets in terms of providing their differentiated AI to the team. And as I mentioned, to companies, and as I mentioned, it's a very strong management team with a really differentiated engineering team that was providing these AI insights.
Whenever we're looking at a SaaS technology, there's a set of kind of core unit economics that we look for, and Bidgely was absolutely meeting and exceeding on some of the key factors that we look for when establishing the health of a SaaS-based business. We were incredibly excited about the management team, the market opportunity, and then the ROI that Bidgely was showing for their customer base, as well as some key indicators like NPS score of customers, which in Bidgely's case is incredibly high. They've done an exceptional job of developing a very loyal and excited customer base about the offerings that they brought to market.
One of the big things in utilities in any industry, especially what I call traditional non-digital industries, is that the digitization of these industries is going to occur, was occurring rapidly anyway, and it's actually going to have to occur even more rapidly in what I call the sort of post-COVID world. So the differences we saw were all around the technology. So first off, the company had 60 patents, I think today. 6 were approved. So, in terms of hardcore data science, machine learning, and AI capabilities, we went really deep on that. And we saw technology algorithms, and models that we didn't see anywhere else. So that's number one. And if you're an enterprise utility company, why would you even think about building that? It just doesn't make sense. That was our hypothesis. I think the second thing is, this is a born-in AI company with a born-in AI utility AI platform. What does that mean? This means this isn't a legacy company that's trying to become an AI company. This is in the fabric and the DNA of the company, and therefore manifested in its engineering and its product management approach. So you have a full scope utility AI platform that was built from the ground up, using at its core the load disaggregation technology. And then our hypothesis was, which has come true, is this platform could support not just regulated, deregulated electrical utilities, smart meters and non-smart meters, but also go to gas, which has happened, and into water. So across all utilities as well. And providing across all of that, the CARE platform, home energy reports, disaggregation reports, et cetera, et cetera. So a full suite of insights, both for the consumer and for the enterprise utility company.
AI and energy market is very large and is rapidly expanding. The estimate the current market size is around $4.5 billion, growing at a 20% CAGR. And the market includes many sub-segments. There are AI energy companies that are targeting utilities, those targeting end customers such as Nest and Ecobee, cybersecurity companies that are leveraging AI to solve energy industry challenges, and then many other segments of the market that fall into this category. One of the key trends is just the massive amount of data that is flowing in from on the utility side. So when we think about smart meters, smart grids, new forms of energy that need to be understood and processed, and then the demands from customers to receive access to real-time data on energy usage and patterns. Additionally, we're seeing factors such as environmental changes, which are leading to historical models for demand side management to become obsolete at a much faster rate than expected. And all of this is really driving towards the need for machine learning technologies, which can process these massive amounts of data and provide real-time insights and answers. Additionally, we're seeing many different applications for AI and energy, from predictive maintenance to power quality monitoring, energy forecasting, as well as I mentioned, cybersecurity applications, just given the amount of energy assets that are now connected. The opportunity for hackers to infiltrate the utility system has never been greater. And so the need for real-time monitoring of assets from a cybersecurity perspective has never been more important. So these are all, in addition to things like customer segmentation, targeting, operational efficiency initiatives like reducing contact center usage. All of these things are contributing to a massive demand for AI applications from the utility side. There are many other kind of pieces of this market when we think about customer demand for consumption patterns and information, as well as optimization of energy usage more broadly from an environmental standpoint. There are many kind of different paths that we can go down to understand the different market drivers and trends that are happening in the AI for energy industry. Talent is always a big challenge. So both from the startup perspective, when we look at companies that are tackling energy challenges, we always look for entrepreneurs that really understand the energy industry as well as utilities that they're looking to serve. That was one of the things that really stood out to us about Bidgely in our conversations early on. And then from the utility perspective, building out knowledgeable teams that can partner in effective ways with AI startups is an important factor. Additionally, capital investments are often needed to fully realize the value of AI applications. So investments in smart grid assets and smart meters and IoT capabilities in order to fully leverage the potential of AI. Additionally, if we think more broadly in emerging markets, there are still reliance on cellular technologies, which can limit the potential of AI, at least in the short term. And then lastly, and I'll touch on this, just Georgian, our firm has focus on trust and transparency in machine learning, and often AI applications can have a limited amount of transparency to end users, and this is especially important in the utility industry, which is a regulated industry in most cases. where you need to really fully understand how a machine learning model is producing its results and have that explainability built into the system. So that's also something that's very important and has been a limiting factor in the past, although with new machine learning technologies, it is now possible to create explainable models. So we do see this trend changing over time.
I'll put aside the consumer piece like Nest, Google, and Ecobee. On the business software piece, I would say a couple of things. One is this is a real market, as evidenced by a private equity roll-up with Uplight. I think so that makes it real. I think the challenge is, when you see capital going in like that, and it's a roll-up model, it's a real market. There's lots of capital going in. The challenge is, you've got 5 companies essentially be smashed together, and ultimately you have to ask yourself the question: if you're buying, am I buying Frankenstein, or have I already got something that's pieced together, in a very artistic way? And I think the question is, it's very hard to roll up tech if it's not built from the ground up and integrate it all. But it does prove there's a market. I think that's number one. I think, number two is, again, why it's definitely a market is, this is the biggest evidence for me, is that, Bidgely has today Rocky Mountain Power, TEPCO, PSEG, and Duke. And that's the biggest determinant for us as an investor is there a market here? Are big enterprise customers buying their technology because they see technology differentiation? So then I think you map that against the existing landscape. So you had a couple of vendors today, again, great company, Oracle Low Power, but it's a legacy company. Oracle's focused on AI itself, but it isn't going into low power. You've got paper reports. And so, I think, again, this is where Bidgely can really lead the market and differentiate. I think the other piece, which I think is really interesting, as you think about Bidgely's technology differentiators versus the customers is, we know that utilities often will like to write their own software, write their own reports and things, or any type of business process software. And, the way that Bidgely's tackling it is they're API first as well. So they're born in AI and they're API first. This allows you then as an enterprise IT shop and utility to write to their APIs and integrate into it, whether you're, regardless of what type of software you're buying. So I think that's a really, really key piece, because you're going to be investing in other technologies and other purchase technologies that aren't Bidgely. I think that's a really important piece of it. So that's how we see the market evolving right now. And then we'll see if, things in the future which are unrelated to Bidgely, like, how will predictive maintenance be in the future? There are companies that are using AI in that space as well. Will blockchain ever take off for energy transactions, in terms of keeping a full ledger on that as well? So I think there's, going to be, because the utility industry and all manufacturing and non-digital industries are going to have to digitize faster than ever before. So if your digital plan was 5 years, it has to be 2 years now. And I think that's going to see software companies and markets that we haven't seen yet as well as Bidgely. Look, I think it was slow-ish between 2010 and 2018. And you had some fairly big legacy players doing paper reports. And there just wasn't innovative companies coming out. And I think, again, it's this look at this overall meta trend. Utilities are going to have to digitize faster than ever before. And COVID is accelerating that. Because of that, I think the energy utility space is actually a really good space, because we're going to see companies like Bidgely and other innovative companies being born in AI, providing really, really interesting value propositions that you probably can't even think of right now. If we think of it like this, and obviously most of the conference audience will realize this, you've got essentially 3 plus Constellation software brands, big CIS vendors with Oracle, IBM, and SAP. You also got your core accounting systems too. And then over time, we've seen the adoption of the CRM systems, around the marketing space. So whether that's Salesforce, whether that's Marketo, whether that's vendor 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you've got that piece. You've got your call center and your service technologies as well, whether that's the Avaya and the Genesis piece, but you also have added to that CX vendors like Medallia, We're working on the customer journeys as part of that whole call center experience as well. Then added to that, we've got all of the cloud infrastructure vendors. What's it all? We've really got three, haven't we? We've got Microsoft Azure, we've got Google GCP, Google Cloud, and we've got Amazon AWS. And so, and then you've got like your outage vendors like Kubera. So you have Kubera on the bills, the payments, and also giving you an outage mobile app. So how I see it is, if you want a single pane of glass for all of your machine learning or analytics insight, that's how I see Bidgely ultimately playing, as well as having a piece of the vertical sort of business process around load disaggregation and energy insights and so forth. So that's how I see Bidgely playing. So I think the vision for you as customers is, you're going to have a multi-vendor SaaS stack, in-house, on-premise, and you're going to be buying tech. So the way for you to think about Bidgely in the long term is, I've got a single pane of glass here for all of my AI and analytic insights.